Hi, welcome to my channel. Now today's case involves the neglect, abuse and ultimate murder of a 5-year-old boy. Now I know it's hard to listen to cases involving children, so if this is not for you, then please switch off now. Viewer discretion on this one is advised. With that said, let's delve into this case. Now, this story ends in Cleveland, Ohio, in the US of A. But it doesn't start there. It actually starts with a phone call to 911 from Pakistan.
My name is Scott Rodriguez. All he told me was that the kid was buried in the backyard. Now, that's all I know. And the kid in question, I don't know what his name is, but I guess he has a lot of problems. So he was crying when he told me, and that's what made me kind of believe sincerity, but I was never able to verify directly. But I know I couldn't sleep at night. He said him and his girlfriend told the older kid that he was staying with her sister, who also has a special needs kid, and that way they don't question it.
Scott Rodriguez told police that his brother, Christopher Rodriguez, had called him from jail, told him that he and his girlfriend, Larissa Rodriguez, no relation apart from partner, they were partners, just happened to have the same name, had buried her son in the back garden. Now, armed with this information, Christopher Rodriguez's brothers at first didn't actually believe his brother, Christopher. And I think, given the same situation, if it had happened to me, I'd be like, I don't think I would believe it either. I don't think you'd want to believe it, would you, to be fair? So the brother of Christopher sat on this information for a few days. However, it played on his mind, as it would do with anyone, I'm sure. It interrupted his sleep. He couldn't get it out of his mind. He was unsure what to do initially, to the point where he said to himself, look, I've got to call the police. I've got to at least share this information with someone just in case it is true. So on December the 18th, 2017, he made the call to 911. Christopher's brother was unable to tell the police during the 911 call, even the name of the child that was suspected to have been buried in the back garden. The only information gathered from the 911 call was that the child was a boy aged 4 to 5 years old. Now, the 911 call prompted the police to attend 1360 block of West 80th Street, which was in Cleveland, Ohio, and was the home of Larissa Rodriguez. Once at the premises, the police, there was 2 policemen that actually responded to the call. They went to the property. They had a look around initially. They looked around the front, they looked around the back. They just did a circumference of the house, looking in the garden. They found nothing suspicious. There was nothing, no mounds of earth or anything jumping out at them. Now, when the authorities knocked on the door was answered by Larissa. She appeared quite calm. The police initially said to her that they're there for a welfare check and asked her if she had a child living there around the ages of 4 to 5 years old. Now, Larissa said yes. The policeman, who was actually at the door, asked Larissa, now, is this a boy, a girl? Now, Larissa hesitated, and then she said boy. Then when the officer asked what was the boy's name, she gave a name of one of her other children. It was at this point that Larissa asked the police officer what this was all about. He explained that they were there for a welfare check on a boy aged 4 to 5 years old. Larissa then said to the police officer, my children are all good. That's what she said to him. My children are all good.
You have one on 4 or 5 year old. How old are your children? 4. Okay.
He just turned 4.
Is it a boy? A girl? What?
A little boy.
The boy, what's the boy's name?
Anthony.
Okay. See if you can get a name.
Is there anything?
Well, we got a call, want us to check on the well-being of the 5-year-old, 4 to 5-year-old kid.
Oh, my kids are good.
Okay. What can we see?
They're laying down.
Okay, I believe you.
Don't mind me, man. But I have them all taken out in my room.
Okay.
When the police officer then said to her, you know, do you mind if we see them? We need to take a look. She was like, yeah, sure. And she showed them upstairs to an upstairs bedroom where in the video you can see a few kids jumping around on the bed. One of the police officers, greets the children and says, hi kids. And they said hello. And Larissa is seen, smiling there at the door, at the bedroom door. They then take the stairs back downstairs, the police officer and Larissa, where more interrogation begins from the police officers. She volunteers to say that she has 9 children, but only 5 are living with her. Further information received from the 911 call revealed that Jordan had special needs, so they knew they were looking for a child that had special needs. When the officers asked Larissa whether she had a son with special needs, she said, "Oh, yes, Jordan." It is only at this point that she mentions Jordan's name. When asked, where is Jordan, she begins to tell a story to the officers that he is away living or staying with his father in Texas.
Do you have a child with special needs?
Oh, Jordan? Yes, I do.
How old is Jordan?
Jordan, he is just turned 5.
Where's Jordan at?
He's with his dad. He's going to be visiting for the holiday. He's not here with us right now, for the holiday.
Where's Dad at?
In Texas. He's not even here. Is that who you guys are pertaining to?
Maybe, possibly.
What was the call mainly about?
Just checking the welfare.
Oh. I get these all the time because I got ignorant ones who want to sit there and call on me.
Do you know, what's his dad's name, Jordan's dad?
Patrick. Pat?
Do you have a number to, Patrick, can we reach that?
We need a list of all your kids' names.
A list? Can I get a pen and paper?
Sure, or you could tell me.
Here, I'll write it down because it's a lot easier.
Okay. Firstborn, all the way down the line. Supposedly Jordan is with Dad
Yes,
in
he's
Texas.
with Dad.
We can call him.
Yeah.
Huh? Right now, I don't have the number because he was going to get a new number.
Okay. But he's got family, so we can
Yes.
talk to them.
I mean, I don't know what this is pertaining to.
Just to the young oldest to the youngest. And if you know the date of birth, put it under there. That'll be fine.
Now, the officers didn't believe what Larissa was saying. Things weren't adding up. And that was because when they was questioning her further on the whereabouts of Jordan, she was unable to provide an address, a contact telephone number, how long he would be staying there. She knew nothing. She was only able to say that her estranged partner, or Jordan's father, had changed his number and he was going to text her with a new number. Now, I believe any of us that are parents or those that are caregivers to children or would not let our child or a child we look after go to a place without having any contact address or any contact telephone number. And the police didn't believe that either. Now, the fact that Larissa was being cagey about the whereabouts of Jordan, plus, might I add, the police officer had noted that the house was in awful unsanitary conditions. There were cockroaches and it was rat infested. They noted when they were speaking at the door, that a child had come down to sit on the stairway and was eating a sandwich, and one of the police officers actually noted that there was cockroaches in the sandwich. Clarissa had fallen under the suspicion of, at the very least, neglect with the children that she did have in the home. So at this point, the police decided to take her down to the station and interview her further. After hours of interrogation, Larissa finally succumbed. Although she denied ever abusing Jordan, hitting Jordan, she started to push the blame onto Christopher, her partner at the time. However, she did give up that little Jordan was actually buried in the garden, and she told the police exactly where to find his body. Now, before I go into any further detail about that, I just want to share with you at this point the very little time that Jordan actually had on this earth. Jordan was born 25 weeks premature. Now, he only had one functioning kidney. He had heart and breathing issues. He was a special needs baby, and he was also non-verbal. Growing up, he was non-verbal. He needed a lot of support. Approximately about a year before his death, he was enrolled in a school, and he had an IEP, which is, for those that do not know, is an individual education plan, and it was to help with his developmental delays. And the school were working really well with Jordan. They were really moving forward. They were really making some progress with him. However, on the 13th of September 2016, Larissa withdrew Jordan from the school with no prior warning, only to say that she was moving Jordan out of state. Well, they were moving out of state. Now, although Larissa said initially to the police that Jordan was away staying with his biological father, there is little known about this man. This man is unknown. He was not. His name is not even on the birth certificate. And as far as we're aware, he had no contact whatsoever with Jordan throughout his short life. Now, Clarissa's sister, Anna Rodriguez, claimed that Clarissa abused the boy and she witnessed this abuse. Now, she also said that she notified child welfare officials on numerous occasions and that they would respond but then close the case. Many witnesses have come forward to say that they did witness Jordan being stood in the corner of his home with a sock in his mouth. Now, this appears to be a repeated method of abuse that Clarissa and Christopher used on Jordan. Another friend once said, once told sister Anna that she observed Jordan nearly dead or half dead in a closet. Now, that was also reported, and yet nothing was done. Clarissa had her first child at 14 years old, and since the birth of her first child, there had been 18 complaints to Children's and Family Services in regards to neglect and abuse in the home. And out of those 18 complaints, there were 13 neglect or abuse investigations on Clarissa dating back to 1999. Clarissa's first two children were removed from the home by Family and Services, permanently removed. They were not in her custody. Two other of her children were living with their biological fathers. One of those fathers was Christopher Upton. Upton began a relationship with Larissa following the birth of Jordan. Upton describes in later interviews how Larissa would physically abuse him and also Jordan. He too witnessed the abuse of Jordan when he would be stood in a corner for hours with a sock in his mouth. Now, I've watched the police interviews of Christopher Upton, and it's utterly heartbroken. When I look at the videos, I see a heartbroken man, a broken man. He suffered terrible domestic violence from Larissa, and to a point where he needed to get out. But at this stage, he himself had a daughter with Larissa. Ultimately, he had to make a heartbreaking decision where he needed to flee the home, leaving not only his own daughter behind, but also Jordan, who he had become largely attached to and describes having a really good bond with the boy. As soon as Upton was able to, he filed for custody of his daughter. This began with visitation rights. Larissa wouldn't show up to the contact centres. She wouldn't engage with Upton, and she was making it very, very difficult for him to see his daughter. But Upton pursued. He didn't give up. He wanted his daughter back. He wanted his daughter out of that home, or house, shall I say. In July 2015, Upton finally got custody of his daughter. Now, Larissa did have visitation rights, and Upton used to take his daughter to the contact centres. They would sit there all day, and Larissa just wouldn't turn up. And each day, he would do the same thing. He abided by the court's rules. He did everything he was supposed to do, but Larissa did nothing. Pretty much from then onwards, Larissa did not have any more contact with her daughter. Now, it was after this period that Larissa met Christopher Rodriguez, which was her current partner at the time of her arrest. Jordan was now in the home with 2 abusers. The abuse of Jordan intensified, and he was last seen around September 2017. Now, we now know that sadly Jordan was ultimately killed and buried in the garden. Now, sadly, it would be a few months before Jordan was missed and the police turned up at Larissa's home. Now, during that initial welfare check, it transpired that Christopher Rodriguez was actually in jail at the time. He'd been in jail for a few months for child support. Now, there are hours of jail calls recorded between Christopher and Larissa in the months that he was in jail and in the months that Jordan was buried in the backyard. I mean, it made me sick, to be honest. It's love you this, love you that, oh, love you, miss you, miss you, miss you, love you, babes. Oh, I couldn't listen to no more than about 5 minutes, if I'm honest with you. And for now, I'm going to take you back to the police station where Larissa has been sat in there for hours and hours, giving interview after interview, initially denying any abuse, like I said, or any neglect towards Jordan or any of her children, until she finally flakes, blaming it all on Christopher, the love of her life, saying that it was him that actually killed Jordan and buried him in the back garden. Now, this is at the point where Larissa tells police exactly where Jordan is buried. Now, police returned to the property, to the exact spot where Larissa had directed them to, and they began digging. And there, buried in a 4-foot by 4-foot hole, was the tiny body of Jordan. He was wrapped in blankets and placed in a duffel bag. Back at the medical examiner's office, Jordan was found wearing a diaper. Sorry, this chokes me up. It's such a sad story. A pyjama top with some shorts and a pull-up diaper, a pull-up over his head. At autopsy, it was revealed that there had been prior evidence of abuse. Jordan had broken ribs. He had a wrist fracture. And the ribs, they were at different healing stages, so it wasn't just an isolated incident. At the time of his death, Jordan weighed just 15 pounds. He was 5 years old. Now, I really do wish that I could tell you that this was the extent of Jordan's suffering, but sadly it's not. There is still more to this story. Now, it came to light during the investigation that during or leading up to Jordan's death, and possibly even while he was already dead, we don't know for sure, Larissa had a welfare visitor visiting the home regularly. Now, her name was Nancy Carabello. Nancy Carabello was supposed to have been visiting the home to check on the children's welfare. However, this was not the case. It's come to light during the investigation that there was a food stamp scam going on between Larissa and Nancy. Now, Larissa was entitled to food stamps, and I think at any one time it was said that she had about $1,000 worth. She would then sell these food stamps to Nancy, the welfare officer, who was supposed to be going round there to check on her children. I do want to just clarify at this point that Nancy was a welfare officer and not a social worker, and she was employed by a charity. Nancy visited the home purely on the majority of occasions to just collect the food stamps, to buy them off Larissa. And it transpired that, you know, on these occasions, she didn't even check on the children. Now, police recovered video evidence of Nancy using the food stamps in supermarkets. She was charged and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Now, this scam started in 2015, and it transpired that it was over $10,000 worth that had changed hands between the pair. In 2019, the Rodriguez surviving children commenced a lawsuit against the charity that employed Carabello for negligence. 34-year-old Larissa Rodriguez was ultimately charged with murder. Her bond initially was set at $1 million. Her version of events on what happened on the morning that Jordan died is said to be around about September the 22nd, 2017. It cannot, you know, they're not sure on the actual date. Now, she claims that she was getting the kids ready for school and Chris brought Jordan into the bathroom and he was semi-conscious. She placed him in a cold shower, took him out of the shower, he didn't really regain consciousness, and she laid in bed with him for 24 hours. When she woke, she said Jordan had died, that he was dead. Now, while in prison awaiting trial, Larissa gave birth to yet another child, who was born on the 27th of the 4th, 2018, and it was a baby girl. Larissa went to court, and she was sentenced to 25 years and plus a further 6 years for the food stamp scam. Now, Christopher Rodriguez's versions of events were a bit different to Larissa's. He claimed that he came home to find Jordan dead, and that Larissa had asked him to help her bury him in the garden. Christopher Rodriguez pled guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter, and the judge, while sentencing this man, cried. She gave him the maximum sentence that she could, that the courts would allow, and he was sentenced to 28 years in prison. Now, I find it really hard to wrap my head around these child cases. And I don't purposely go out and research child murders or child neglect. They're out there. They are out there. And, you know, in light of what's happening in the UK at the moment, we've had a few cases. It's, you know, people think, oh, it's not that common. But it is really that common. It really is. These poor children have no voices. Choking up again now. It's so sad that they're brought into this world only to be taken out by the people who are supposed to love them. Now, I'll let you into a little secret. As I've actually been recording this video, I've been sat at the table and I've been looking out my window up the length of my garden. And I just can't imagine going on with my daily life as if nothing had happened, knowing that I buried a baby out there. Now, Larissa's sister has been very vocal throughout the development of this case. And she reports that, you know, that they had a hard life. They were adopted. So they wasn't in the custody of their biological parents. They said their adopted mother was very kind, very nurturing. However, she did have a drug problem. She began seeing a man by the name of Juan Mateo, and she loved him dearly, but he was very abusive to her. He ended up stabbing her in the street more than a dozen times in the chest, back and arms while she was at a beauty shop. Now, Anna claims that Larissa witnessed this. The boyfriend, Juan Mateo, he was charged with her murder. He pled guilty to a lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter, and he was sentenced to life in prison. He's currently locked up in Mansfield Correctional Institution, and he'd be eligible for parole in June 2037. Now, the thing is here, this was not his first murder charge, and their mother, Emma, knew this, but she loved him, and she chose to stay with him. Now, Anna says her and Larissa's upbringing, particularly Larissa's, with Larissa witnessing the murder of her adoptive mother, that made her so volatile, so angry. And she believes that this is the reason why Larissa turned out the way she did. But I'll leave that one to you guys. Genetics or environment. Well, that's it from me today, guys. Please join me again for my next true crime episode.